Well, welcome everyone to the May 8th Bennington Select Board meeting. It's wonderful to see so many of you in the audience. I am Jeannie Jenkins, and I have the pleasure of chairing this board. And I'd like for my fellow members to introduce themselves, starting with Gary.
I'm Gary Corey. Welcome.
Good evening, I'm Jean Connor.
Hi, Tom Haley.
Good evening, Sarah Perrin.
I'm Ed Woods.
Lovely. And Jim Carroll wanted us to let you know that the legislature is meeting today, which it doesn't usually meet on a Monday, so he is unable to be here. And I would like to also introduce our town manager, Stu Hurt. Nancy Lively, who takes excellent minutes at every single meeting.
She's not here.
Yes, Jonah Spivak on the computer again, who is our lovely, lovely communication coordinator, and Josh Boucher, as always, filming this for Cat TV, which we very much appreciate. So, all right, a reminder, if you have trouble hearing, as you can probably already tell, this is an echo chamber, so please move up close if you are having trouble hearing. Ooh, and it's making funny noises.
No, that was me.
That was
Oh, okay. And, and there's a headset that is always available as well. So, with that, let's begin as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Gary, for leading us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. And Tom, would you please read the our town vision statement that guides us in all our
Certainly.
work?
Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, so next up is the consent agenda. For the purposes of discussion, could I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, any discussion or questions for Stu or Nancy? Hearing none, I will ask for a vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say yes. Or yes, or aye. Yeah. Those opposed say no. Any abstentions? All right, great, thank you. All right, next up is public comment. Just a quick reminder, public comment is for the purpose of sharing information that is for the good of all. It's not a time for discussion, but for the board to hear from the public. We do want to have you get any questions or concerns that you have answered, so the best way to do that is generally to stop in to see the town manager or let us know ahead of time that you have a concern so that we can research it and speak to it at either later in the meeting or at a different agenda, on a different agenda. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes, and unless there is an immediate question, we ask that you sit down after you share your thoughts. So I have 2 people on the schedule for tonight. Sam Restino, talk about May 9th and May happenings.
Sam Rustino, Bennington, Vermont. Unbeknownst to me, I learned of this day over the weekend through the banner. May 9th is Fentanyl Awareness Day. And I did a lot of legwork today as far as preparing a candlelight vigil at the Four Corners tomorrow night from 7:30 to 8:30. This is just to be awareness of the certain drastic drug that's not only in Bennington, but nationally known all around town. These are just for people that have lost loved ones or just make awareness of the fentanyl drug. You can bring candles, you can stand with me. If not, I'll be there from 7:30 to 8:30. Second note, as you know, with the select board meeting, there is a packet, and I find out that the town residents are not looking at the packet. There's a lot of vital information that citizens don't take time to read, and they are directed to go on the website. Well, I got a feeling that some people don't know how to orchestrate the website, they don't bother asking questions, and they need to. I hope that in the near future, when something is discussed on the open meeting and it's in the packet, there'd be a little bit more discussion on it to bring up conversation with the general public. For instance, in this week's packet, there was about the YMCA, that great, we've got grants. And it was for the after-school program for coffee with on Wednesday mornings to cover that. It's from the state of Vermont. How much was the grant, for one thing, that we're covering for the program is my question. But if discussion has to take place, I'd like a little more of that in the forthcoming agendas. Another thing is we are not into brick and mortar anymore. We're into pop shops, so forth, with discussion that happened on the 28th up in Sunderland. Our community development director stated that it's very hard to open up a brick and mortar shop, so the next best thing is pop-up. So I guess that's into our vocabulary as a pop-up shop to go into our downtown.
Sam, I just want to let you know you've got 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll work on it. My dates in May, as you know, the 13th is Bennington Fire Department. We've got their open house right here. The 16th is the AT community, along with the Appalachian Trail community that takes place here the 16th at 6 p.m., and Jonah knows about that one. Oh, you changed it now? I thought it was the 16th. The 18th is naturally the car show, and also there's also the same event that the BCRC is having their annual meeting up on the hill at the Bennington Museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Next up is Kelly Carroll. Talk about the Riverwalk.
Hi, Kelly Carroll from Bennington. I just want to thank everybody who has helped support the Riverwalk for the last 2 years, and the Walloomsac Riverwalk group is coming out with a new program called the Unsung Hero Award. You're going to hear a lot more about it in the next month or so, but we're looking for people from the community to nominate unsung heroes. And these might be anybody that you know. It could be somebody who works in one of the bucket trucks that repaired the down power lines. Maybe it's a plow driver who's cleared the icy roads all night. Or an emergency room recovery coach who goes to the ER to connect with someone who's overdosed. Or maybe it's a hospice volunteer that you know. So if there's someone that you know in our community that does a lot, and just, you know, we just want to recognize and say thank you, keep that in mind. We're going to be putting it out to the community. There are little little cards that you can fill in to nominate. These will be at the walk. Our next walk is going to be Saturday, May 20th at 10 a.m. It starts at People's Park, and it's going to go right up the Riverwalk. And there will be a public news release, but the website is https://tinyurl.com/benhero. So if you know anybody that you can think of, please nominate them, and let's recognize our unsung heroes. And again, thank you to everybody who has supported the Riverwalk in the past and who will continue to do so. And we hope to see you Saturday, May 20th, 10 a.m., People's Park. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kelly. All right, moving right along. Staff updates. Yes. Oh, sure. Please. Please introduce yourself, town of residence.
Nancy White, Bennington. My comments and concerns go with the lease and purchase agreement for the Ben High. It was in the select board packet prior to the first meeting in March, and what most people don't realize is within a few weeks after that meeting, one of the sections on a page was removed. I know it's legal to make additions as you go along. I also know once it was posted on the town website, not anything should have been removed, and it was. So my questions are this. Why didn't anybody on the select board speak up last year when you realized this happened? I don't understand how the $28 million project is legal if the lease hasn't been legal since nearly right out of the gate. And clearly, an investigation needs to be done before this project goes forward any further. So who would you call in to do that? The state of Vermont?
Nancy, if you have questions of that nature, I suggest that you contact the town manager, because as you know, this is public comment, not discussion period.
This
So,
agreement was put together by multiple
Nancy,
town
if you have
officials.
questions, please contact Stu Hurd.
This is for the select board to deal with. Did one of you take the section out of the lease? Because if you didn't, why would I talk to the town officials about it?
Anything else you want to add, Nancy?
No, but I think this is a
Okay.
major issue for Bennington residents to be questioning.
Thank you. All right, yeah.
Can I just mention that the same lease agreement with the amendment has been on the website since we first posted that back in March?
Well, what I don't want to do is get into a back, I appreciate that, Jonah, and it, as frustrating as it is not to address these things, this is not a time for discussion. And if a resident really wants an answer, if they have a legitimate question and they want an answer, Stu is always available, and we can go from there. Okay, but I appreciate it. All right, so next update are staff updates, and we have with us a new staff member who we want to introduce to both the select board and the community tonight. So, Stu, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about our new IT director.
Yes, our Informational Technology Director, Nick Cave, joined us not too long ago and has been working very diligently to bring a lot of the PD technological stuff up to date and online, and he's been very successful there. And Nick, why don't you
Come on
walk up to
down.
the microphone and tell us a little bit about yourself and just how much you enjoy working for the town.
No pressure. Good evening, how are you? So my name is Nick Cave. I started on April 3rd, and it was no secret that one of my big projects was the police department. So we've managed to, we're coming to the tail end of deploying the new computers that they had purchased in October of last year. And so we have the final one for the analyst position to deploy, and then later this week we're also going to finish the installation of their smart board for their conference room for training purposes. So there's a lot of other infrastructure things that need to happen at the police department, but the first thing was to get their old equipment swapped with their new equipment. And then in addition to that, we're working on a number of town policies from disaster recovery to the information and identification phase of assets and network inventory, and the list continues.
That's great. We are so happy you have joined us. This is a new position for the town, and one that we've desperately needed, so we're very happy.
Well, I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. Any questions from the board, or? Yeah.
What's your next project once you're finished with the police department?
So we have a couple things in progress right now. We're in the process of switching carriers for our internet backbone from First Light to Consolidated. And so that's going to be, most of the legwork's been done for that. It's just the physical connection swap over. And then as part of our framework for cybersecurity, the first step is really identification of all devices that are within the town network. So that's from anything from computers to switches to access points to routers, firewalls, you name it. And along with that process is also establishing when that equipment goes obsolete, and not so much from a functionality standpoint, but from a security patch standpoint. So the manufacturers announce end of sale, and then anywhere from 2 to 5 years later, they'll stop supporting it entirely. So that's sort of been woven amongst everything. Another big priority is we've started pushing out a training program for the staff, and that's it was endorsed through the league, and we actually got reimbursed for 2 out of the 3 year subscription. So the town paid for 1 year, The league reimburses us for 2. And that's a platform where we can push out security policies, we can do surveys, and it gives us a baseline foundation as to what the knowledge level of the staff is when it comes to where do you go for security policies, who do you communicate when there are issues, what are best practices, and so that's really more of a people interfacing tool to reach all town employees.
Wow. Sounds like a big job.
That's great. Would you entertain questions from the community, if there
Sure.
are some? Anyone have a question for Nick? No?
I can't tell you why your iPhone doesn't work.
Darn it. All right, well, thank you so much. It's really wonderful that you've joined town staff.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Nick.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, and then next up is Shannon Barsati, who's going to talk to us about the revolving loan programs, which we've had some questions about from the community, and so this is an opportunity to
Great, well, good
clarify.
evening, everyone. Let me get closer to the mic here. So since we'll be discussing a new policy for the loan program, I wanted to give an overview and an update on the Bennington revolving loan program as well as the townwide housing loan program, which are part of the same fund. So the origin of these funds funds were created, this fund was created in the 1970s with remaining funds from grants that were granted to the town from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, that the town received for infrastructure projects and housing rehabilitations. So the purpose of the revolving loan fund is to encourage business growth and job growth within the community, particularly in our designated downtown, and to aid in the rehabilitation of historic downtown structures and in the expansion, construction, and equipment needs for local businesses that were finding it difficult to acquire the necessary funding through the bank. The objectives of the program are to enhance the commercial vitality of the community, to renew and enhance the architectural integrity throughout the town, to enhance employment opportunities, and improve the environment in the community and encourage responsible growth in the community. So the eligibility of the program for the revolving loan program is any for-profit or nonprofit corporation, partnership, or proprietorship located in the town of Bennington. It must be a small business, so meeting the Small Business Administration requirements of less than $6 million, with an average profit after taxes during the last 2 years less than $2 million. And there has to be an acknowledgement that access to alternative sources of financing is limited or unattainable. And the way that we do that in the loan application process is applicants have to show basically a letter of rejection from a traditional bank for what they're trying to do. So the loans can be used, every loan must in effect create or retain permanent jobs. They can be used for both exterior and interior improvements and the purchase of machinery, equipment, furnishings, and fixtures. So the loans cannot be made for refinancing or real estate acquisition or operating expenses. So currently in our revolving loan fund, we have out in loans $1,175,557, and that's what's out in loans. We also have $574,692 in funds available to loan, and of that, about $84,000 is in default. That also includes loans that have been written off due to the company going into bankruptcy. So the overall rate of 7% is a good rate. I mean, this is a loan program, so people have to pay this money back to the town, and it's working. This program has been in existence for over 40 years. So here's some of our, I just looked at the last 4 years that I've been in this role, so these are some of the more recent recipients of the town loan: Juniper Lane and Angry Egg downtown, as well as the Bennington Community Market, a downtown local food store, the Dutchman's Tavern, Farm Road Brewing, that's Miss Vermont, and Little City Cider Company up on Shields Drive, and the Putnam Block, of course, which was the larger loan that was given, because really the Putnam project is meeting both economic development and housing needs. So in the last 4 years, 10 businesses have received a total of $875,000 in loan funding through the revolving loan fund. 102 new jobs have been created. 8 vacant storefronts and buildings have been filled. An additional $1.2 million in private equity has been invested. So that is, those individual businesses have put that much of their own finances into the projects in addition to the loans. And that doesn't include the Putnam Block. So with the Putnam Block, an additional $32 million in both private and public funding has been invested downtown. So that's a quick overview of the revolving loan fund, which is really about small business development. So the other use of these funds is a housing rehabilitation loan program. So given that these are HUD funds, affordable housing is one of the priorities of HUD, of the original funds. The housing rehabilitation loan program provides financial assistance to projects that provide housing to low and moderate income eligible individuals and families. So that's also known as LMI, low to moderate income, and that's defined as earning 80% or below the median income for the county. So that's around $50,000 in Bennington. The objectives of the program are to encourage landlords to reinvest in their housing units to ensure the safety and quality of life for their tenants, to make energy efficient upgrades, to minimize blight and deterioration, to protect and improve the neighborhood environment, to reduce fire and safety hazards, and to utilize existing housing stock through the rehabilitation as an alternative to new construction. So the loans can be used for any activities that bring the building into compliance with the state of Vermont's energy code, including heating solutions, weatherization, energy efficiency upgrades, electrical system, plumbing, ADA, American Disability Act compliance renovations, roof replacement and repair, and improvements to foundations, exterior walls, chimneys, porches, and septic systems. So for this program, the eligibility is also an acknowledgement that access to alternative sources of funding is limited or unattainable. This really is about housing improvement, so that's why the job creation piece is not part of this program. So I know that was quick, but that's an overview of the programs if you have any more questions.
Great. Any questions from the board?
Shannon, you say it's for the town of Bennington. Does that include the village of Old Bennington and North Bennington?
So in my experience, North Bennington, that's a question for Stu. We haven't had any applications from North Bennington.
It would include the village of North Bennington and the village of Old
Okay,
Bennington.
so it does. Now I know. I think we have focused, I don't know if this is because of the applications that we've gotten, but the focus really has been, in my experience, on downtown Bennington.
I had one other question, and that was, there's 2 loan funds. Are they separate pots of money, or is it all the same?
It's all the same pot of money. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple, Shannon, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The 7% that's in default, is that from the beginning of time?
That is just currently. From the beginning of time,
I'm just curious to know what the history is on that. 7% is a very desirable goal, right?
right? Exactly.
If it has maintained that low level throughout its life, it's a win.
I'm going to go back to Stu on this one since he's been here longer than me. Do you have any history on the program, Stu, about how?
I really don't have a feel for that, Ed. I think we've been very, very successful with the program. There have been a few businesses that have managed to survive for a number of years only to fall on hard times and not been able to pay back their entire amount. So I think 7% to 10% probably is where we've always been. I think we are somewhat careful about who we, even though these programs are supposed to be risky, we're very, very careful about the risk we take.
I think that's a terrific statistic. My next question is related to the requirement that other sources of funding be unattainable, unreasonable, that sort of thing. My question is sort of personal in nature. I had some experience with the program a number of years ago, many years ago, where we thought it made sense for a business that my wife and I own. And in order to qualify, we had to produce a turn-down loan from our bank. And our loan officer said, no, we won't be providing you with that because we'd like your business here and you're qualified.
Right.
What's complicated about that is the use of bank funds may have been complicated for the project, or it may have put risk, for other debt service that we needed to maintain. Has there ever been a look at that with alternatives, and what kind of guidance do you give applicants who might be in the situation that I was in?
Right. Well, I think, given that we're not a traditional bank, we do want to make sure that these funds are going to the projects that can't get that traditional financing. So that has been the focus. But given that, sometimes it's just a matter of talking to your bank and saying, well, we're trying to do this, can we get this certain kind of rate? And sometimes they'll work with us. The bank officer will work with us and say, okay, for this circumstance, we can't give this kind of a loan. So I'll give an example. Like sometimes you'll notice that a lot of food businesses are often coming to the town for these kinds of loans, and I think partly that's a risky business. And if you're purchasing a restaurant, for example, you might have the equity or the bank loan to purchase the building, but you might not have what it takes for the business. A lot of times people, if they're selling a business, there's another piece that they're looking for in the sale that a bank is not going to fund, or you might have a gap in your equipment, et cetera. So this really is sort of that gap funding. And so I think that's how we've looked at it. And usually we'll work with a local bank, and often many of the other entities have bank loans as well as other. There's a state of Vermont economic development grant that's been utilized by some of the businesses as well. So we try to sort of work with them, to help them finance any gap.
Sounds collaborative.
Yeah, I think it really has been.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions from the community about the revolving loan program? Yes, Sam, come on up.
Sam Racino, Bennington, Vermont. I did read a Bennington article back in the year 2013 where the town of Bennington did go after a certain business that didn't pay a revolving loan. Are we still pursuing other businesses, or are we just going to say, throw your hands up and saying, kick it off to the side?
That's a good question. And yes, we are pursuing a few. At this point, I think it's just four who, I think even one of those has gone into bankruptcy. So we're not continuing to pursue that recipient, but the others we do. And, sometimes we have success. We've also gone to small claims court when needed, but, so far, as I was saying, the actual rate that people are paying back their loans is really good.
Any other questions? Nancy. Oh, Nancy, please, come on up.
I have minutes from a select board meeting from November of 1999, and there is a long detailed history about the loan policy, over 3.5 pages of minutes. They talked about shortening the time the loans went out, perhaps capping the loans, but there's a lot of information, so if you want to understand about the loan policy, this is excellent. My question is, I couldn't find the policy in the select board packet or on the town website. Do we have a policy right now?
They're actually not policies, Nancy, they're loan programs, and they would be available through Shannon's office.
Okay, but if you want information, this is what you should look at, and I think it would be helpful for the public to know how long the loans are good for, and now in here it says you can't commingle the loans. Did you say that you can? The loans and the housing policy.
So Nancy, you need to step back if you want Shannon to
Okay,
respond.
but if you want information, these are the minutes you should look at for information.
Well, I'm impressed, Nancy, that you've dug deep there. You said it's 1999? Okay.
24 years ago.
Yeah, so that
long
was
time.
before my time here, and I haven't looked at that, but as far as the most of the material here that I just presented is in the applications and the descriptions of both programs, and they are up on the town website.
And so that does bring us to the next topic, yes? So the
Yes.
next agenda item is actually creating a policy on revolving loans. And this actually came out of questions from community members about how the revolving loan program worked, which has been more process. We followed a process and a procedure for a while. And so town staff, working with Merrill Bent, our town council, looked at what a policy could look like that addressed some of the concerns from the community. So Stu, are you taking this? Is Shannon?
Yeah, I'll take
Okay.
this.
Okay.
Yes, we received from Mr. Perkins, who's here tonight, a concern about the fact that the loans were not being basically adopted by the select board in an open session. And in the past, over the last some 40 years, the staff meets with the board in executive session, reviews the information that might be considered non-public, and makes a recommendation to the board of what we would do. The board, by consensus, allows the staff to make those loans. After talking with council, we all came to the agreement that, in fact, with the revolving loan program, the way the document is written, the select board should actually be taking a position in open session on those loans after an executive session. If the information that is desired through a public records request, the information in the applications can be released, albeit redacted, to avoid privacy concerns, and so this policy then takes and puts into language how we will approve the town loans. And townwide housing loan program, those would be approved by the manager before a loan is granted. Those generally are smaller loans. As Shannon has laid out for everyone, they are for improvements to housing stock and create better living conditions for the community folks. The second program is the larger program. The loans tend to be larger in nature. The select board is allowed to waive minimum standards in the loan program, and we have loaned monies up to $250,000 to $300,000 on major projects. So these programs then in the future will be voted on after executive session by the board in an open meeting. And that's what this policy puts into place, and I offer it to you for your adoption.
Thank you. And so my understanding was that the select board either needed to be out of the process or in the process. You couldn't have a foot in both worlds, which is sort of what we were doing on the
Essentially,
revolving
yes.
loan.
But if you do look at the loan documents, when they were drafted, I think the intent was more of a board-related action, even though over time, board members have really stepped back and allowed the staff to run the programs. Albeit I think we've been very successful, but I think this is a valid concern and one we should address.
Yeah. And so this policy would mean that we would continue the process of not being involved in any of the townwide housing loans. We
That
would
is
not
correct.
be involved in that program and be very much involved in the Bennington revolving loan program.
That's correct.
Okay. And that we need to do two things. One, we will need to make a motion and for discussion purposes, and then vote on whether we want to approve this policy or amend it or reject it. And then if we accept this policy, then we need to vote to ratify all the previous loans.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so for the purposes of discussion, do I have a motion?
Can I make a motion that we accept this loan policy, approval policy?
Great. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, discussion by the board.
I have a question. Is there a reason, or what is the reason that we have two, one the townwide housing loan program that you would review as the town manager versus the revolving loan fund that we would review as the select board?
Well, after discussing with council and with staff, as I said, the housing loans tend to be no more than $25,000. They tend to be very focused on an individual property where the residents meet the income guidelines, or in fact, the homeowner meets the income guidelines. So they're very straightforward. There's not a lot of waiving of policy guidelines. We stay and pay strict attention to what the program provides. So we felt that rather than put an individual property owner through a lengthy process with select board approval, it would be much easier if we were, and more streamlined if we were to handle it in-house.
Just to follow up, is there a limit that's set on the townwide housing loan program, or?
25,000, I believe, is the maximum available per unit.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, when was the last loan given out for a townwide housing loan?
That's great, because I
Thanks.
can't do that off the top of my head.
Yeah, we haven't had that many, actually. The last one was I can't remember if it was the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020. I think it was pre-COVID for the Manus House. That is like an assisted living facility on Union Street.
What was the name of the property?
The Manus House, yeah. It's a historic house as well.
So it's been quite some time then, okay. And that was
It's been
around...
3 years? Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
3 years.
So that was the max, 25,000?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Any questions from the audience? No? Okay, so shall we vote on acceptance of this policy? All those in favor of accepting the policy as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none? Great. Okay, policy passes. So this will go on the website. I'm sure Jonah's on that. Great. And so now we need a motion to ratify all previous loans that have been made. Is that accurate?
That
Are we
is
going
accurate.
back to the beginning of time?
We are going back to the beginning of time.
Who wants to make that motion?
I'm the only one that's been here that long.
Okay.
I don't mind making the motion. I think it's a fair motion because we've agreed forward. Why wouldn't we agree back?
Yep. Okay, thank you, Ed.
Yep.
Anyone willing to second that?
Oh, sure, second.
Okay. Any discussion? Board? Community? All right. All those in favor of ratifying all previous loans to the beginning of time, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 2 items under traffic ordinance amendments. Let's begin with the winter parking ban. We have updated language for that.
Yes, we struck the word angle out of the article title so as not to confuse. It refers to all parking within the town of Bennington.
Great, okay. Do we want to go ahead and make a motion to accept this so we can discuss it? Anyone want to make a motion? Okay. Great. Second?
I can second it.
Thank you. All right, so any discussion on the traffic control ordinance to extend the parking ban from November 15th to extend it from March 31st to April 15th? No? Community? All right, then let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nope? Okay, great. All right, and then let's move on to the speed limit on East Road. And this is a continuation of discussion that we began 2 meetings ago. And I would like to suggest that we hear from anyone in the audience who is here to speak to that, and then take comment from Select Board, and then comment from anyone that is outside the East Road and neighboring community. Yeah, can we do that?
Can I just,
Yeah.
at the last meeting, there was a question about the number of motor vehicle accidents that have occurred, and I talked with the chief of police. We were able to identify 4 vehicle accidents, and I'm sorry I wrote down the wrong years. In 2021, there were 2. In 2022, there were 2. 2 of those accidents occurred at the intersection of Houghton Lane and East Road, mostly due to inattentive driving.
Stu, did you say all of those accidents occurred there?
No, only 2.
Okay, thank you.
The others, most of the others were also the result of some form of inattentive driving or weather-related incident. But those are the only accidents that have occurred on the roadway in the last 2 years.
Great, thank you. Thank you for following up. All right, so let's say again?
I'm sorry, what was the first, you said weather-related, or what was the first thing you said?
Inattentive
Inattentive,
driving.
gotcha, okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's hear from anyone who that lives either on East Road or in the surrounding neighborhoods that would like to speak, please. So please come up, state your name, where you, a town of residence, and then try and keep it to 3 minutes.
I'll do
Okay.
my best. My name is Lori Pasino, and I do live on East Road. And I think probably most people, when you think about that stretch of road, you think about the people that are going up to the transfer station, or the people that are going back and forth to the middle school, which the traffic has really increased since we put the school in. And I'm glad the school's there. I'm not down-mathing that at all. It's a good move. But when I think of East Road, I think it's my neighborhood. You know, I see every day the adults and kids riding bikes back and forth, and now that the weather's getting better, we're seeing more, and even electric bikes. Now, I saw a couple of those go by today. I see kids walking up and down, and now that East Road Market's open, and they have soft serve ice cream, we have more foot traffic for kids coming down and getting ice cream, and adults walking. We have one woman that's in her 70s that it's her regular jogging path. And remember, there aren't any sidewalks. I think they end close or near to Duffy Drive. So they're walking either in the road or in our yards, which I'd prefer them to be in our yards, but oftentimes they're walking up the roads. There are school bus stops during the school year, so you've got little kids out there, it's not just the middle schoolers. And there's actually a registered child care home that's right across from East Road Market. And I talked to Deb today, and she said she couldn't be here because she's at a class, but she said she absolutely wanted to be here and say, you know, I have kids picking up the school bus there, and I have my little kids out there too, because you can't leave them in the house, of course. So I would really ask you to reconsider increasing the speed limit along there, because it is my neighborhood, and I don't want people to be going faster than they are now. They fly down East Road. The speed limit right now is 35, and I would take a gander that most people go 40. And oftentimes they go a whole lot faster than that. I mean, they're flying down that road. And with our decreased police staff right now, I would love it if somebody could just park up there on Willow Road and, you know, we could. Especially right now, it's not a good time because we can't effectively make people do the speed limit now. And if we up it to 40, they'll be going 50. I really ask you to please reconsider this because it's my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Well, my name is Sue Rice. I live at 1499 East Road, opposite Lori. I wrote a letter to the board expressing my displeasure with increasing the miles per hour guideline. One thing you probably don't realize is, besides the fact there are no sidewalks, the shoulder doesn't even safe to walk on. I walk my dog on that frequently, and I've had people blatantly come at me, which is fun. And then you have to kind of dive out of the way. The other thing is, as we said, there's a transfer station further up. Many times the big town trucks go by. And if you look at the width of the road, I know it's legal, but 2 trucks to pass each other, if there are people on that road with soft shoulders or no shoulders, there's no place for the person to go. I agree that 35 miles per hour, people tend to go more than that. 40, 42, I would say, is what people do. Today, somebody came out of the area next to us by Willow Road on what they call crotch rocket, and he went flying up the road. I was waiting to hear him hit a tree. I understand we've had 2 accidents at Houghton Lane, which is a very interesting intersection when you kind of have to crouch kind of come into East Road in order to really see. But the other 2 have occurred at Duffy, which is down around a corner. It's almost a blind corner. I've walked on it. You cannot see. I have to kind of walk in the road and keep my eyes on the cars coming at me. But that's where they've happened. Inattention can be anything. It can be impairment. It can be somebody playing with a radio. I don't know what causes these accidents, but I do know the telephone poles have been crashed. And I know because my husband worked for the phone company and had to have those repaired. Again, there are no sidewalks other than up to Duffy. And then from Duffy onto Town Line Road, you are walking on a road that has no place that's safe for walkers. And we are a family area, and I just want to express the safety issues and concerns that we all have.
Thank you very much. Others? Yes, please.
My name is Mike Baker. I think at the last meeting I saw on Cat TV, thanks Cat TV, that you tabled this to have further discussions as to the advantages and disadvantages of raising the speed. I was wondering if anything came of that.
I think the only information that came back was the accident information.
Yeah. I mean, you know, basically, Mike, the recommendation is based on a traffic standard that indicates that if the average speed of traffic is, in this case, 42 miles an hour, that really should dictate what the speed limit is, not necessarily what people might desire it to be, especially on high-traveled roads that run between communities, and East Road is one of those. So there's, I mean, it's a planning document, it's a V-Trans proposal that we looked at, working with the Bennington County Regional Commission Their recommendation, and you folks don't have this, the select board had some of the information. The average speed is 42 miles an hour in the time frame in which they studied it, which was back in November of 2022. The highest rate of speed clocked at 76 miles an hour, so you folks aren't too far off when you talk about people speeding, and the slowest speed was 7 miles an hour. And I can't imagine who that was, but nonetheless, it took them a while to get up the East Road. So, I mean, I don't know that there are advantages or disadvantages to it. It's really a way of looking at the speed limits to define what the road can logically handle and what people can logically drive. And if most people are driving at 40 miles an hour, is it fair to set the speed limit at 35? That's the question. I don't know that there's an advantage or a disadvantage.
So let's look backwards and say, okay, if they're going to drive 7 miles over the speed limit, why don't we drop it back to 30? Then they'll do
Can you speak
37.
directly into the mic, Mike? Can you
Sorry.
speak directly into the mic? Because I
So
can't.
if they're already speeding, why don't we take it back to 30 and then they'll drive 35? Right? Right? Well, part of my concern, one of my thoughts was, if it was a matter of making it quicker for people to get up East Road, okay? I clocked it, and it's going to save about 30 seconds from Kosher Drive to Houghton Lane. We have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit at the school anyway, when you're going through the school zone. So, you know, the question is, it's with the park there and everything that's going on, there's people across from my house. I paced it off before I came down. We're 12 feet between the edge of the road and the sidewalk where all the middle school kids walk. And we're looking for a problem. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, please.
I'm James Allison. I live right next to Mike on East Road. Nobody has mentioned this so far, but I can tell you there is a horrendous noise pollution problem on East Road. Horrendous. It seems like everybody who has bought a new truck has gone for the ones with the biggest motor and the least muffler. And I sit in my living room trying to watch TV. Some of these trucks go by, they rattle the pictures on the wall, they disturb me. I swear to God, I have high blood pressure, and I can say that probably 10% of my high blood pressure is due to noise pollution. It's a thing. And I also would like to say that as far as the idea that people drive 42 miles an hour and so that's what the speed limit should be, that just makes no sense whatsoever. If it makes the road less safe, what if people were driving 50 miles an hour? Does that mean that the speed limit should be 50? Of course not. That argument is a bad one. I really hope that you take into consideration the livability of East Road. We're residents, we pay taxes, we're good citizens. And just because somebody else wants to go up East Road a little bit faster, that's no reason why so many people should be inconvenienced and basically harmed.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak on this issue? That lives on East Road? Okay, or surrounding neighborhoods? Okay. So let's take it back to Select Board. Any other thoughts from us or things you want to share before we go back out to
If I can just make
General
a comment, if I could.
Sure, absolutely.
Without an understanding of advantages to raising a speed limit, and I said this at the last meeting when we talked about this, I understand efficiency and moving traffic along at a speed that the road and neighborhood are rated for. I understand that. But that doesn't sound a lot like an advantage to me. And I've heard a lot of what residents have said tonight and the last time we discussed this. And East Road is a neighborhood, even though it is a thoroughfare to get from one side of town to the other. It is a neighborhood, and I think we have to respect that. So with the absence of a tangible advantage, I'm not sure why we would do this.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that on that. And another thing that occurs is we've just put some money into restructuring the playgrounds at Willow Park. We're hoping to see higher traffic there. And I just don't see how 5 miles an hour could make that big a difference to anybody that's going up and down this road. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know exactly where the study was taken, where on East Road they actually gathered this data. I really don't see any reason, given we don't always get a ton of feedback from the public, but I got a lot of emails, and there's a lot of people here tonight, and not one person has spoken to me in favor of this idea. And that generally tells me that's probably a fairly bad idea. So I do intend to vote no.
Anyone else want to comment now?
I have just a question.
Yeah.
Was the study that was done on East Road, was that requested by someone, or does PCRC do that for all of our roads? Was this a specific road that they looked at, or are they looking at all of the 18?
In this particular case, they looked at the East Road and the South Stream Road, which are the two community interconnecting roads in Bennington. And results were similar on both. I put forth the East Road to gauge a feeling from the community and from this board as to its desire to look at this from a scientific point of view or not. And from my perspective as the manager, I don't have a goal one way or the other. I think it was information that came to us through the BCRC, and I put forth our proposal for you folks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I don't have
Right. Any other general questions from the community? Yes, Sam. Come on down.
Sam Rashino, Bennington, Vermont. Since South Stream Road was brought up, which I live close by, I live in the desert area, the section to be raised to 35, I can't think of the numerous times by the fish hatchery how that telephone pole has been hit. I think there should be more patrols up there on South Stream Road, especially the section that goes up as far as Moss Drive in that general area. You got more people hiking or walking, bike riding up in that general area, and even the stretch on Beach Street. There needs to be more speed limit signs. There's only two going southerly. There's one right at the intersection of East Main Street and Beach, and then you go a few miles down more. You don't even go where all the houses are. There's no speed limit sign there, which I think there should be one there. And the next available speed limit sign is just before Gore Road.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, I was going to say, someone wants to make a motion, but go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm not ready to make a motion. I just wanted to say that at the same time we're talking about raising the speed limit on a road where there are many, many homes and many, many children, we're also encouraging people to ride bikes more and getting outside and getting more exercise. And the two are diametrically opposed. So it's really the lack of sidewalks that is most compelling. It's the most compelling argument. For me, safety should always be a priority, and I just don't feel like five miles over the speed limit where it is now is even close to a good idea. So
Great.
that's
Okay.
how I feel.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion?
I propose we take no action.
You what?
Propose we take no action.
You propose we take no action.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second for that?
I can second that if it's an appropriate motion.
Well, I'm just wondering if we want to be a little clearer, because if we take no action, it means it can come back at the next meeting. I'm just wondering if instead we want to oppose, that we
I make a
want to
motion
state
to
that we want to keep
oppose.
the speed limit as is.
Make a motion to keep the speed limit at 35.
Okay,
And I'll second that one.
okay, all right. All right, any more discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor of the motion to keep the speed limit at 35, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, all right. Thank you all for your comments.
I'm going to circulate a signature page for the one that was approved.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so next up is implementing town vision. And I think we have a couple things to share on this. One, I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on our work on having a legal aid presence in Bennington. As part of the settlement with Kaya Morse 2 years ago, the town of Bennington welcomed the opportunity to have legal aid have representation in Bennington. My understanding is they did have an office here many, many years ago, but it's been a long time. So we initiated outreach to legal aid 2 years ago, and actually with the help of a legal aid board member who lives in this area, we were introduced to Deputy Director David Kinzinger, who we have been working with. David is out of the Burlington office and has graciously come down here several times and helped us think through office space. We have looked at town office space, including the town office, the senior center, the rec center. There are other buildings that are really not appropriate for a legal aid office, either because of where they're placed or what kinds of offices they are. And we did determine that there was space in the blacksmith building, which is the old blacksmith shop, which is where the BBC is housed, the Better Bennington Corporation. They have a front office that was ADA compliant. Access was good there. We added parking spaces so that there was space there. We looked at the need for conference rooms, and there is a conference room upstairs in the BBC, but there are also 2 conference rooms at the town office, which is next door. We looked at accessibility moving from BBC to the town office, and all of that worked. Southwest Tech was a great help through John Lamson, who made sure that they had, legal aid would have a table, chair, and file cabinet. We thought we were all set last November, and sort of embarrassingly, I learned 2 weeks ago that legal aid had not started any services down here, even though I assumed that they had. So I did reach back out to David and to find out what they needed that we didn't have yet. And legal aid would really like to have a larger presence in Bennington. They're very happy to have office space and to see clients, but they would also like to think about what additional services they could have. And to that end, David sent me an email, which I'm going to read excerpts from with his okay, that they've partnered with Southwest Tech and Bennington College to try and get some congressional funding to start a clinic down here, but that funding was unsuccessful. They just set up a meeting and just had a meeting with NAACP to talk about how they might best serve BIPOC community in Bennington area. They're developing an expungement clinic which helps individuals expunge some criminal records. They're doing that in Brattleboro, and they're thinking maybe they could do that model in Bennington. And they'd like to put together some community legal education activities through the Disability Law Project and bring that to Bennington. So they are still working on that. David and I talked about the work that the Department of Health is doing here on health equity. We have, as I think you may know from other select board meetings or other places, there are 2 census tracts in Bennington where the life expectancy is much lower than overall in Bennington. So just sort of trying to address those kinds of health equity concerns. Also connected him with GBICS and with Project Alliance, which is a new project to pull together all the groups in the community that are working on everything from community policing to substance misuse to housing and homeless issues. So we're waiting to hear back from David, but I think he is very aware that we are anxious to have legal aid services in the community and that it would serve our community well. So just wanted to give that update, and I guess my apologies for not realizing that they were not yet serving our community. So that's that. And then I think CPARB?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
So what you're saying that they want to wait until they're ready to kind of launch this more comprehensive presence in the community before they start to?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. CPARB?
Yeah, actually, I'd just like to turn it over to our CPARB chair, Kelly Carroll. Thanks.
Hi, Kelly Carroll, Chair of CPARB, which is Bennington's Community Policing Advisory Review Board. I just want to remind everybody we have our May meeting coming up. That will be Thursday, May 18th at 6 p.m. in this room here, 3rd floor multipurpose room at the firehouse. And then a large part of our meeting is going to be talking about our listening session. So we're relatively new, as you all know, or most of you know, and on June 29th at 6 p.m., which is a Thursday night, right here, we're going to be doing our first community listening session. And we're hoping to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your experiences. We're going to be spending a lot of time in our May meeting talking about some of the specifics for that, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that that's coming, and please save the date. We're hoping to get a lot of support from the community as far as like attendance from some of our agencies and having support. So we're starting to reach out to all of them. Thank you, Jonah, for your help getting our Save the Date. It is on the community event calendar on the town's website. So that's coming up, and please join us and let us know your thoughts, your ideas, your experiences. Cat TV, thank you very much. They will be covering that live. They cover our meetings as well, so that is available if you've missed anything. And thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then just a quick update on boards and commissions. We started interviews this evening before this meeting, and we will complete interviews before the next, just prior to the next select board meeting, and be able to present a slate at the first meeting in June. So that's our timeline on that. All right, anything else under Town Vision? Okay, all right, then we're moving on to manager's report, yes?
I don't have any action items for you tonight. Sam Restino already took some of my thunder. The fire department is going to be having an open house Saturday, May 13th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at this facility, and the public is invited to join in. The Willow Park Playground continues. I know my last update 2 weeks ago was somewhat dire. Found out the following day that things were all of a sudden moving very quickly. We now have contractors scheduled to be on site May 15th and 16th with an eye to at least attempting to finish up most of the work that remains. We've seen some installation of equipment that hadn't been installed yet. We've seen some punch list items removed. So they are involved, and they're moving quickly to bring the park to fruition. It is open to the public and open for use. So it is safe to use. We just have a few things to finish up and make it what we think will be a wonderful addition to the community. And then the last thing I have is we have received our proposed contract for the 2023 fireworks, which will take place July 4th. We have a rain date of July 8th, which is the following Saturday. Fireworks generally go off about 9:30, and we'll be pushing out our usual fundraising efforts into the community to help us with that expense. This year, the contract calls for a shoot that will cost us $15,300. And one of the best in the county and in the region.
Absolutely.
And that's all I have.
Great. It's a happy note. All right. All right, so let's see. Upcoming agendas for May 22nd. The Rescue Squad has a...
There's proclamation for the rescue squad. I believe the Ben High folks will be coming back for some additional effort with the select board. And we also will have V-Trans coming back with the 3 roundabouts proposal. They have been doing their due diligence and work, and so we'll have an update from them as to where they are in those particular projects. And I think that's all I've got right off the top of my head.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. So let's see, other matters arising.
I don't have any. I just want to thank the people from East Road that come in here and voice your opinion and know that it makes a difference. Thank you.
I just want to congratulate Dan Monks and all the other people that worked on the rail trail for 30 years. There was a really, really wonderful ceremony right out here in the parking lot, and it was very well attended, and it was a beautiful day, and we missed you, Dan. Thanks.
I'll just relate a story from the ribbon cutting, that someone was riding his bike and was so elated to be on the brand new rail trail that he rode right through the ribbon that we had strung across, waiting to be cut. So it's good to see folks out there excited about it. Thanks.
I just want to repeat what Gary said and tell you that your comments from East Road and the neighborhood at the last session and at this session is what drove my decision to vote against such a move. And so what Gary said matters. Your participation is important. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you all for coming.